same mistake that they did.
What did you do?
I didn't title it right. Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Show. Woo! We have had a very busy couple of days. It is, of course, the first week of the Eve Universe Show, and I promise you, I had a plan for this week. I had a plan for this show. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to be covering like the industry changes, and then like the other changes that are going to be coming out, and like the CSM and stuff like that. We would interview CSM members, and that's how I'd fill my time. And CCP was like, nope, you're going to talk about lore all the time, every day. And I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. So we got Arsia Elkin again, and we're going to dive into the topics of the last couple of days because the lore has not stopped, and it didn't take a day off, even though I did. So first of all, Arsia, how have you been since we last talked on Tuesday?
There's been a lot going on, and we're all preparing for war. So I am what's the word? I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that we might get the big one, as some people are calling it.
We definitely, we don't know, we're not sure what's coming, but it's starting to look a little juicy, and CCP are definitely starting to put some pretty important signposts. So we're going to jump through those. So I kind of wanted to structure today into kind of three different chunks of time that's important that we'll be going over. One is yesterday, we had some follow-ups about what was going on or what happened on Tuesday, and some clarity to that in a way. And then today, there was another attack. And then after that, there was a world news article that basically tells that everybody's getting ready for war. So that's kind of the three big beats. But yesterday, a lot happened, even though it wasn't nearly as visible as a bunch of dreads appearing in high sec and starting to shoot at a planet. But thankfully, Arsia has more information about that. So let's start with actually the aftermath of the Capitol fight. So
all right.
Yesterday.
So the aftermath of Tanoo, right?
Yes.
All right. So Tanoo happened on the day before yesterday, and Tanoo was the coordinated attack happening right after assault on Innis Ilix and the prison break of the two high-value targets, Chakade and Zashev. The three dreadnoughts jump into Tanoo alongside a subcap fleet supporting those dreadnoughts, and they start bombarding the second planet, Tanoo 2, which is the capital planet of the Minmatar mandate. They did very little damage. I think like a fishing. There was like a note that like some like fishing dock or village.
Speaking of which, can we stop right here and ask, why is it always the fishing villages when it comes to the Amar and the Minmatar?
With Flossiswan, the one in Flossiswan.
Yeah, like it's always like CC, like they always make it a point. It's like, and this little like.
All right, so there is a reason for that. You know.
No, I want to know.
The cities have absurd defenses. Like Tor Amat, the capital, has like incredible anti-ballistic shielding and like anti-missile system. Like you can't really do damage unless you take all their systems offline. But that little town, it doesn't have those sophisticated defenses. So if they're gonna hit something, they have to hit what they can, right?
Right.
And they don't have the time to take down it's the most fortified planet in the mandate, right? It is the capital planet with the governor on it. So it's always going to be the fishing village that gets hit when they want to make a point. Maybe not specifically a fishing village, but like it's going to be the small town that gets hit when they want to make a point. Anyway, so very little damage is done to Tanoo. There is a small little fishing village that close to the capital that gets hit.
Right. So, but more importantly, uh,
The
sorry.
I was going to say it was done by the Brutor Vanguard, which are a mercenary
Uh,
republic. Disavowed the attack, saying it was not a sanctioned attack. It was not something that they commanded, and we don't really know the details on whether or not that is the truth and to what extent is that the truth. Like, they are a group that has the plausible deniability because they are not, it's not like the Republic fleet came in. It is a Brutor tribe affiliated mercenary group. But then yesterday, the day after the attack in Tanoo and the attack in Innis Ilix, an Amar affiliated mercenary group called the Red and Silver Hand, that is affiliated with the Arsia family, which is the family that oversees Derelict. The Arsia family is led by Aram Arsia, and the that family is charged with, in addition to Derelict, they're charged with a few other regions, but Derelict being one of them that they have been in charge of since Jamil gave it to Jonas Ardashapur back in Jamil's term.
Right, and that's important because that's the Amatar mandate. That's what we're talking about. So
Right. Yeah.
Ardashapur basically are the noble house of the Amarians that kind of watch over the Amatarians, which are like not fully Amarian. They're Minmatar that the
So,
Amarians have basically tolerated.
I mean, in the Empire, the Amatar do about as well as Nikuni do.
That's true. Well, we
Yeah.
actually, I do want to say, I don't want to rehash a lot of the same stuff that we went over
Yeah.
on Tuesday. We do also have the video
Right,
on
right,
YouTube
right.
from Tuesday, so I encourage everyone who's trying to get caught up to watch that, so that way we don't make every video into 2 hours of explanation plus then whatever else is coming out. So please
Right.
get caught
Anyway,
back up.
Anyway, this Red and Silver Hand, this Ardashapur associated mercenary group that also has the same plausible deniability that the Brutor Vanguard has, but on the other side, hits the border system of Odyssey, which is the border from what is it? Keno Banala to Odyssey, from Derelict to Molden Heath. That's the mandate to one of the regions of the Republic, Molden Heath. It's a low sec to low sec border. These two systems are pretty famous because in Kenobanala on the Amatar side, there is Fort Kumar, which is one of the most prominent forts of the Vindication Wars that the Republic and the Mandate fought with one another for like 100 years. But these mercenaries hit Odyssey, which is this border system in Molden Heath that has the Minmatar's own defenses on the border. It was about there wasn't a capital force like the Tanoo attack, but it was 4 to 5 squadrons of diamond NPCs, cruiser size, that were going after specific targets in like, it wasn't like an all-out attack, but it was like a coordinated strike on specific targets in the system. That that attack was stopped by Electus Matari and Nadrir's consultants, which are a Gallente group that are allied with them. There are also Minmatar NPC fleets in the systems that were kind of locking down the gates. And that was yesterday. So after this happens, Ardashapur comes out and said basically the same thing the Brutor said. We That's not us. I don't know what they were doing. We didn't sanction that. Totally not us. So you have first the hit from the Minmatar affiliated mercenaries on the Amar and the Amatar, and then them denying it, and then the Amar affiliated mercenaries hit back and also deny it. People are saying you're muted.
I'm still muted. All right, sorry about that. My son came in and interrupted me, so I didn't want to. Either way, sorry about that. Going on, we so yeah, we have the world news from yesterday that explained a lot of this stuff, as well as the fleet of diamond rats that attacked yesterday. That is kind of suggested, I think, at some point in yesterday's world news. But then also in the world news from yesterday, we get a follow up on the Caldari incident, or what's going on with the Caldari state, which is a whole nother situation which deserves its own conversation. So we're going to have it another time, I believe. And then also the other big announcement, which I thought was really exciting, is so the Gallente President Celis Agard, was elected on partially on a campaign of connecting Solitude. So Solitude is a Gallente high-sec space that is a giant high-sec island. There's no way to get to Solitude without passing through low, and I believe maybe even requires null.
Yeah,
to get to. And so there's been a strong drive.
I think you can get through low from Iridia.
I think so too. Yeah,
right.
I think there's a long way to get through low, but the quick way is requires null. But either way, the point is that Celis Agard is now moving forward with doing some reconnaissance in order to discover a good site for these gates. It's hard to tell whether or not this is actually going to become actually a real thing where Solitude becomes actually something that you can travel to without traveling through high sec or low sec. Without traveling through low sec or null sec. I don't know. Right now, a lot of projects are having some hitches, and a lot of things are in question. So it's hard to say whether or not they will even be able to move forward with the Stargate, or if such a thing wouldn't come under attack or something. We'll have to see as this develops. That being said, it is very interesting that actually ties into the Trace Cosmos, which is a cosmic phenomenon that was just added into into Solitude. So it kind of it allows them. I don't know if this suggests that site was now put in as a way of because of this lore event that's kind of happening, or if it's just the lore event is like, hey, look, they just put these in. And we're playing with that place, so we're just going to call it out, whatever. I'm not saying it's necessarily something important, but I do think it's kind of cool. And then here is that note that you're talking about where Artichaper has raided Molten Heath and denied that it was controlled by the people ahead of them. And that's actually really noteworthy because Molten Heath is where Dust 514 more or less took place.
Yeah. Then after that happened, today
there was one more thing that I wanted to actually get your thoughts on about yesterday. I'm sorry. Before we move on from yesterday.
The Black Dagger murders?
Yes. You want to talk about the Black Dagger murders from yesterday and how they relate to the previous
for those ones. So they are high value, well, not high value, but very important figures in the Republic. So the Hagar governor of Brutor tribal land. So Hagar is one of the planets in the system of Pator, which is the home system of the Minmatar. Matar is the home planet, but Hagar is one of the other major planets in the system. So the planet, which is obviously going to have people from various Minmatar tribes. There are 7 Minmatar tribes, and each one would have their own regions on a planet that's not exclusively theirs, which none of the ones in Pator are going to be exclusively anybody's, probably. But a Brutor governor, Brutor being one of the tribes of the Minmatar, was killed at a grab ball match, which is like a sporting event. So this governor was at a sporting event, and he was among one of the people killed by an explosion. And they are saying it's linked to the Black Dagger killings. Now, what's really important is that the day before, Chicade, who was the one who made all the threats about the murders, the Black Dagger killings that it references there, that the explosion was connected to, escaped on the previous day. So basically, Chicade escapes, and there's another string of killings right immediately after.
Yeah, I did some research about
for
this.
high value targets. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did some research about this over the last couple of days because this has been kind of important. Because my question was, when did the Black Dagger's killings start in relationship to Chicade? And so,
so that was the two people who were killed in Mikramura during the Flossisman conflict. After Chicade gave that what is it, like however many people he's going to kill with the Black Daggers.
right.
They're the two people killed on north of Sundasel, or
So the timeline goes as kind of as follows. Back in 2018 in YC 120, that's when Chicade was involved in like the Deathglow stuff and talked lots of smack about the Ammatar and how bad they all were. And then in December of 2019, YC 121, Chicade vows total elimination of Ammatar treachery in collaboration with Terror of Khanid and Iridia. In February of 122, he says he gives an inaugural Holiness and Right Action Ministry sermon. Right after that, in early March, he is promoted to Cardinal. After that, in later March, he gives the Black Dagger threat if the city is attacked.
March, right? March 10th was the Mikramurka Black Dagger murders, which would be the first ones.
But this is a year prior. This is before before the city got attacked.
This was this March 10th, though, right?
Right. No. But his threat was in March 2019, or 2020. Right. So YC 122, a year ago, he threatens the Black Daggers if the city is attacked. He then he broadcasts a sermon on reclaiming the Holy Fire on Flossiswin, and refers to the teachings of Saint Junip. And then in May, he broadcasts a threat to unleash a sea of fire and blood if the city of Jolin Kral is attacked. And then in June, he is accused of all sorts of atrocities while being there in Flossiswin. And in July, the city's attacked. And it falls to the SFI VA, 2nd Army Group, which I'm not 100% sure who they are at this moment. At that point, Chicade goes missing and then pops up. There's a bounty on his head throughout all of August, and he shows up in September in the St. Tetramon's holding facility in Tanoo 2. In December, the Theology Council rules that he should be moved to their facility in Innis Ilix, which brings us to now New Year's. That is when they formally agree, and he is moved to Innis Ilix. So by New Year's, he's already moved out of Tanoo 2. It is at that point that we get no lore events for the next 3 months, and the next event after that is when the Black Dagger killings start being talked about as things that had just happened in the previous days. So now 1 year after the original Black Dagger's threat, after he's been moved out of Tanoo, the first Black Dagger attack occurs. Subsequently, in the next several weeks, we've had 5 major killings, and then now this explosion killing 200.
So, the first killings from using Black Dagger were like a year after he made the threat. Then,
yep,
because it was this March, YC 123, on Matari, when that happened.
Yep, the original Black Dagger threat, what came in before
2020,
before Flossiswin fell, because it was originally like it was saying, hey, if you attack, then this will happen. Hold on, let's see. Cardinal Duke Alar Chicade openly threatens to unleash 93,000 Black Daggers across rebel provinces.
And the murder was 2021 in March.
Mm-hmm.
The first murders. Yeah, so it was like a year from the threat to the first of the string of murders. Um,
And then now and then of course during the Bruder Vanguard attack on Tanoo, all the Bruder Vanguard also broke into the facility that he was moved into in Isilix, and his whereabouts are now unknown again. So, um, this led to my suspicion that potentially he was involved in hiring them, especially since he has kind of this MO of hiring mercenaries, and in order to, both get attention off of him and also spring him out of jail, depending on what is necessary. Might as well do both at the same time. But that leads us to today's event, which when I was in the middle of arguing this exact argument in the lore's primary Discord, when it comes across the feed that CCP is live again. So what
yeah.
happened today?
So today, in the system of Jirani Fa, which is a very, very interesting system for the border dispute that the Amar and the Gallente have had in the system before. In game, it reads as Amar sovereignty system in Genesis. And today, 5 Moros class dreadnoughts once again siloed into this 0.6 system, and they started shooting at a planet. So these Moroses started shooting at a planet. Players and the Imperial Navy show up. The Moroses are destroyed. There's more logs. And basically, after this, it's another one of those mercenary groups. The Crux Special Force, Crux being the constellation of Valor, but like the Crux Special Forces task group, I think.
Yes.
Crux Special Task Group.
Plus special.
They're another one of those plausible deniability mercenary groups. A lot of players think these are all false flag operations because it's all these individuals that seem to be related to these mercenary groups that are not the proper militaries, popping up one after another, hitting targets in the various systems. But basically, this Gallente mercenary groups today hit the Amar Empire planet with Dreadnoughts. And after this happened, the Amar Empire called for a full mobilization of all of their house and empire-wide military groups, and these fleets were stuck on the borders, basically ready for wartime operations. The Minmatar Republic responded in kind, mobilized its Republic fleet. You can see a Republic fleet and Imperial Navy ships on various borders that they have, both to different Empire space and from low sec to high sec. You can actually see like the militaries building up on the borders with like diamond rats that will shoot at people with bad standing. The Caldari are also apparently building up their military on the borders. The Gallente are not, because the Gallente are trying to de-escalate the situation. They do have their militaries prepped and ready, but they're keeping them off the stargates. But right now there are Minmatar and Amar ships on opposite sides of the stargates, ready to jump in on one another and start, quote unquote, the big one. What's really interesting about the system today, Jirani Fa, is it is a system that was previously disputed between the Amar and the Gallente. And according to a chronicle, it was given to the Gallente. The system was disputed, and the Quaif company came in and struck a deal where the system would go to the Gallente, and the Amar would get some amount of the minerals that are mined in the system. In game, it shows as Amar sovereignty, and it was Imperial Navy that responded to the attack. So this is a really weird discrepancy between the chronicle, the Quaif chronicle, and what happened, or what is reflected in game. And I am honestly not sure if the system like changed hands. When did it change hands? Because I just know the system was the system listed in the Quave Chronicle that claimed it was given to the Gallente. But it's clearly marked as a Marin game, and it was the Imperial Navy that responded to this attack by the Gallente. So that's kind of nuts. Like, the
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up real quick. But so the thing about this week, or this fight attack rather, which was somewhat different than the previous attack. So in the last one, there was like the tokens that made it really suggest that they were like tribal, like sacrificial warriors.
the tattoo, the
Yeah,
wrecks of the ships had tattoos that showed that they were long-term veterans uh, of the fleet that were heralded as heroes for their work against the Amar.
right.
They also had ship logs. These Gallente ships also dropped ship logs. So people are trying to once again get those ship logs to see if maybe we can turn them in and find out what happened.
They actually had an extra thing too. They had so like the tribal guys had their tattoo thing that showed like they were like nobles or whatever, and we're like, oh well, either they clearly are Minmatar, like sacrificing themselves. They also didn't bring enough fuel to get home. Like this is clearly a sacrificial mission. But with these Crux guys, it wasn't like that. There's no like special lore token in there to suggest that they're somehow like willingly going to die for their nation or something like that. And they have fuel. They theoretically could have left if they wanted to. Uh, but the other thing about the Crux is that while the Brooder Vanguard showed up quite a bit in the lore, especially recently, basically since this entire arc has started, you know, the invasion and post-invasion arcs, we've seen the Brutor tribe or Brooder Vanguard show up a few times, in particular with the Flossiswin fight. I ran a search, and this is the second time that the Crux Special Task Force has ever been mentioned ever in the history of the world news. And the only other time was because one of the guys that works for Upwell's upper echelon used to be part of the Crux Special Task Force. So,
Yeah.
other than that, they are completely nobodies to the world news, but they actually stem back to an event that happened in 2006 when, in the Crux constellation, there was this archaeological find. And I don't know 100% what happened because I've only done limited research on this today. But by 2008, the Crux Special Task Group was formed, and this group was part of the precursor storyline that led up to Dust 514. So, you know, that's kind of where
Yeah.
this group kind of came from. But other than that, they've never been used before, which a lot of these other groups like Arkhambine and Brooder Vanguard, CCP loves using them.
So I think this is just a situation where there weren't really other Gallente groups that fit the bill of the Red and Silver Hand and the Brutor Vanguard as the plausible deniability mercenaries, right? And I think the Crux was the one that did. So that's probably why CCP went in that direction. Also, remember, Delegate Zero, who's behind a lot of these events, is an old player who was very active in the RP community and was probably around when the Crux had that thing going on in 2006. Honestly, I haven't heard about them before today myself.
Yeah. Well, I do know that the earliest I was able to, I did some research about Delegate Zero, and I know that he was around 2010 and stuff. He was already starting to write stuff as part of the team with Drop Bear and stuff. So that's how far back at least he goes as a dev. Um, but yeah.
Delegate Zero was in Star Faction, right?
CCP Fozzie says, plus their logo is great. Whose logo? Which logo? Crux? Oh, the Crux. Yeah, the
Didn't it?
Crux's logo is actually really cool. Most of these other dust groups, that's a good point. Most of these other dust groups have
Yeah.
that very basic, you know, dust star logo, but the
generic
ones
corp
today,
logo, yeah.
well, it's the generic Dust Corp logo. It's like a circle with a star, and it's like a bronzy color.
Yeah, they all have that logo, but I think that's just the logo for corps that don't have a logo.
Oh, I see. Because the Alliance has the big star. That might be true,
Yeah.
but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, let me pull this up real quick. So the Crux Special Force Special Task Group has
Yeah, they have a
this
cool
really
logo
cool
because they
logo.
were from before Dust 514, right?
Yeah, yeah, they had a piece to that, but like I said, they haven't been mentioned in the world news. Now there was a time in which CCP switched over to the world news, so running searches against the world news doesn't find events that were used to be posted.
Yeah.
It used to be that they posted them all in the same update feed. But by the
Yeah.
way, my favorite detail from today's event is that now the only 2 kills that the Crux Special
Diana
Task
Kim,
Task
yeah.
Group have on their kill board is Diana Kim twice. That is amazing.
And the Kikimora that DK lost was also Anna is another RPer. So
Yeah,
Anna's a Minmatar RPer.
Diana's great.
Yeah, DK is a very, very dedicated Caldari RPer.
Well known to many of us that have been part of the faction warfare community for some time. Okay, so let's see. You already jumped into kind of what has been going on today, but just to make sure that we cover it because this is kind of the last. This is where we are right now. I'm going to just read the latest article. Is entitled "Breaking: Empire and Republic Face Off as on Borders as Inter-Council Meets." Uli Genesis. Republic fleet battle groups have been deployed to multiple borders and key stargates across Minmatar space, and Amarr fleets gather on gates bordering the Republic and Federation. The inner circle is in emergency session as a dangerous escalation of forces across New Eden is in progress following the bombardment attacks on Tanoo and Jiren Fa. The Minmatar Republic has reacted to the large mobilization of Amarr forces with their own deployment of fleet groups to key locations. Border systems with the Amarr mandate have been reinforced as substantial battle groups. Additionally, various systems have served as a fallback position in the militia war zones of Hematar and Metropolis, have been reinforced with large fleet presence. In one notable hotspot, large fleets are facing off across Ardar Floswin Stargate Link. There are no reports of contact between the opposing forces, but the possibility of accidental escalation to outright war is alarming citizens across New Eden. With a large number of vessels still mobilized on Edencom duty, the combined deployments are approaching the vast numbers of battle fleets and capital ships mobilized at the height of the Triglavian invasions. Damatar Malaku Shakur is reported to be in conference with the Tribal Council and military advisors, including Hetman General Kenneth Filmer and Liberator General Nola Ashok. The Tribal Council is believed to be considering a call up of reservists from the Territorial Defense Guards and tribal militias. An order placing all active Republic fleet and Republic command troops on wartime alert has already been issued. The Caldari state has reacted cautiously, but there are reports of megacorporation security fleets, including capital ships, moving to positions close to the borders between the Federation and Republic. Caldari State's delegate to the Inner Circle is currently at Amarr Prime for the summit with the Imperial Privy Council. The Amarr Empire has continued to activate planetary defenses and raise militia and police forces to war footing. The Gallente Federation continues to adopt a posture aimed at de-escalation and has kept its mobilized forces away from stargates. The powerful Luminaire Defense Fleet has been fully mobilized and its squadron spread among staging locations throughout the Crux constellation. I find it interesting that they specifically say that they are guarding the Crux constellation. Given,
I don't think it's that interesting because that is their home constellation.
I think that might be
it
it
makes
too.
sense that, yeah.
That is part of the point.
Yeah, they are the crux.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
The archaeological finds, from my understanding, I don't know that much about what happened at that point, but it was about like pre-Rada Empire discovery of that era. So like.
You mean of Jiranifa? So it was just like a really mineral rich.
No.
Right?
The archaeological discovery that led to the formation of the Crux Special Task Force.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry, but go on. You were saying something else.
Oh no. I was just saying the Crux is their home constellation. So that's that's obviously going to be the most fortified. Like the Amar, the first thing they did was fortify Dam Tarsad, which is the capital of Amar Prime, which makes perfect sense, right? They are they, they fortified Dam Tarsad. They mobilized all of the House forces, stuck them on the border. The Republic responded in kind, mobilizing all their forces on the border. The Gallente Federation is notable for they're not putting their ships on the stargates. They are just spreading them among staging locations in their home constellation, and they're trying to de-escalate the situation because, like as I said before, right now there are Amar and Minmatar fleets on the stargates that you can go see in game
Right.
that are just sitting there waiting to just jump in and have go time. Our peers from various factional alignments are just like, okay, we got to start building ships right now. We're going to war.
So, but it actually makes sense though for the Gallente to be in this posture because they're the only forces, they're the only people that haven't had significant attacks within their own borders recently. The Caldari have had numerous problems, riots, uprisings, terrorist attacks, etc. in recent months. The Amar Minmatar are either blowing each other up or have people pretending to be them blowing each other up, but either way, they're getting blown up. Uh, and the Gallente haven't really had any serious problems. They're discussing infrastructure expansion and wartime mobilization, but more as an offensive than anything else. So it is an interesting point that the current position really favors the Gallente over any of the other empires.
So, this is my take on what the current position is. I think, and part of this is just because I want this to be the case, like out of character wise. A lot of people say that, oh, I think it's a false flag operation because they saw all the EOM stuff on Hobo Leaks.
Right.
They're like, oh, it's a because EOM wants to destroy all the empires and basically wipe out the constellation, the cluster, and they're
Yeah.
trying to get the empires to fight. But my take on the thing is, Chikade and Zashev are extremely. They are two of the most likely people to have information that could turn the Amar Empire into civil war. The Republic wants those two people. I think that the Brutor Vanguard did an unsanctioned two-pronged attack on Innis Ilix to get the prisoners, on Tanoo to distract from the prisoners, because we keep talking about Tanoo now.
I
We don't
know.
talk about Innis Ilix nearly enough. We talk about Tanoo because Dreadnoughts bombed a planet, right?
I did notice
So we
that like there
talk
was
about
no mention of
yeah.
it whatsoever. They're like, oh yeah, he's gone, and then like
Yeah.
there's nothing about
So
it. It's like, wait a
think
minute.
I think it wasn't sanctioned by the Republic, but I think the Brutor Vanguard went out of the way to do that to get those prisoners, and I expect Chikade to turn up on the RJD doorstep, gift wrapped. That's the Republic Justice Department. I think that the Sarah mercenaries were an obvious counterpunch after being not Sarah, Arda Shapur. Sorry, Arda Shapur mercenaries were an obvious counterpunch after the Brutor punched Arda Shapur, and I think the Gallente mercenaries are basically the Gallente's way of saying, if this goes down, we're in. Because the thing about the balance of power in New Eden is that the allied nations need one another. If the Empire and the Republic fight and the Republic takes a fall, the Federation's going to be overwhelmed by the Empire and the state. It needs the Republic.
Right.
So if a war breaks out, everybody's going in. You're going to see the Empire and the state, and you're going to see the Republic and the Federation, because they need their partner in crime, or else the other two will overwhelm them.
Well, it's worth
Like
noting
the Empire cannot fight both the Republic and the Federation, and the Federation cannot fight both the Empire and the state.
It's worth noting that the Kruk Special Task Group is answers directly to the Federal Intelligence Office, the FIO, who are supposed to be dealing with the attacks or investigation on the attacks on the presidency election last year, but have been kind of behind on that as well. So almost like they have something else that they're paying attention to.
Maybe they found out the attacks were tied back to the Amar.
Hard to say.
Who knows? That's just speculation. That's based on
How does the
nothing.
trig fall into so okay?
So how?
Actually, so earlier I got subbed by Razor Girl, who thank you very much, by the way. But I do want to. I brought that up because I've been talking to her. I believe Celeste is her in-game name, and she's part of the new Brave Collective. Have a RP Sig, which is really kind of exciting. And so she and I have been talking a lot about all this stuff in the background too. And she has a theory that the next attack will be Amar Dreads attacking somewhere else. Just because if you think about it, like the first one, like the Chicade connection and the Brooder Vanguard, it got us to create all of this theory, right? And then the Gallente attack was just the correct kind of attack from like a storytelling point of view to be like, hey, guess what? Your theories, screw all of them. And start over. And you're like, what? I don't even understand. And then you start to build something up. And the next one would be the Amar attacking someone else. That's the next shoe to drop.
So I think it's going to be Caldari Dreads attacking the Federation because the Amar attacked Molten Heath.
So what I think it's worth noting. So like the head of I think it was Lidai, I want to say, was the one that got in trouble because of the videos and stuff like that, and then immediately after that got assigned to be the delegate to go be sent to the Amar. And so maybe that's not exactly. I remember that they were in the news for something else very recently within the state, and then their name came up right away after that as the person that got sent to Amar as part of this this meeting. And then so now today's news confirms that they are there, which tells us that one of the heads of at least one of the big eight is in Amar Prime right now meeting with the Privy Council. So I'd be really surprised if the next beat is a Caldari strike against Amar, since the Amar currently
it's going to be Caldari against Gallente. Against Gallente.
Oh. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
The Caldari need the Amar. They need the Amar, or else the Gallente and the Republic will overwhelm them.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see the Caldari striking, giving an opportunity.
Caldari have a pretty good relationship with the Amar since all the economic aid that the Empire gave them under Jamel.
Templus Dragonar? So, let's talk about the theory about the EOM for a little bit. So, the Equilibrium of Man are an Amar faction that want to effectively eradicate all life and return the cluster to God. Shorthand. So the theory goes is that they're creating this destabilization in order to cause war, make everybody kill each other, and destroy all life or whatever. The main reason why this is because on Hobo Leaks, there's a whole bunch of new EOM rats that are put in. But next week is Capsuleer Day, which is generally hosted by the SOCT and has had problems before with like Operation Conscious Interruption. So it seems far, far more likely that will be its own contained plot, and that this is related to whatever the next quadrant's going to be, which probably doesn't like. I would be shocked if like 2 years of plot threads stems down just to make it so that the EOM can attack the SOCT for Capsuleer Day. That doesn't make any sense with what else is going on with the story whatsoever. So I suspect that it's going to be someone else.
So I hope it's actually the Empires and not like, surprise, it was me, Dio, all along, right?
So you think that it like Your hope is that it basically is what it looks like.
Yes. My hope is that the Brutor Vanguard attacked the Empire in an unsanctioned attack, and then it escalated from there to full-out war, just as it looks like. Because I really like the storylines of the empires being terrible to one another, and you get to see like all the worst parts of humanity, even though a lot of the people involved on all of the sides are trying to do the right thing. They're brought up in this terrible cluster, and you just see like the worst parts of humanity explored in the Darkkeep universe. And I think it's a return to that form. I think this is also potentially leading to a breakdown of like the Concord Treaty, making it harder. Maybe faction warfare revamps could come out of this. Maybe they want an updated Militia War Powers Act. The Jove would respond by being still dead, as somebody asks in chat.
What does the Jove delegation think? We're still gone.
We're still dead. Not a new Jove Empire yet. Right?
No, the SOCT, may have an opinion.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see how that works.
Yeah. But this is good for the pirate factions. This is good for the Triglavians. This is good for capsuleers who want to turn a profit selling to the navies.
Why does it feel like if anybody's in charge, involved, like the mastermind of this, it's either Sancha or the Angels? Like, if you go like long-term spooky, if you go long-term spooky, like there are lots of signs in all of this that like Sancha is somewhere just behind the curtain, and it's hard to see exactly where they are. But
you know what somebody said?
Yeah.
All right. So what somebody said today, we were all on comms in the RP Discord, and Delegate Zero sneaked on comms, muted, and somebody said, what if they're all bioadapted people that were on the Triglavian worlds that were taken, that were turned against the empires for a Triglavian plot? And then Delegate Zero just said, that's a good idea, and logged off. And it's like, oh no.
Good night, everybody. Our work here is done.
It's like, and I'm just like, if that happens, I will find you. Right?
So the reason why I say the Angels is because they more and more, they just seem to have their fingers everywhere. And so since this seems to be happening everywhere, it made me think that like the Angels really don't like the empires, and they have the network of communications and stuff to basically undermine and infiltrate throughout and bribe the other pirates to do things like the Garistus, basically doing a bunch of criminal shit and then pinning it all on PKN. It just, if there's a criminal mastermind, it's probably the Angels. If there's a spoopy mastermind, it's probably Sancha. If there's a more mundane mastermind, you're right. The militaries, basically, it really does feel like they're effectively justifying their already strongly held positions, right? The Minmatar and the Gallente fight the Caldari and the Amar. And all of this is just window dressing that basically is just the same shit. So if you're moving to a faction warfare revamp or something like that, it makes total sense.
I'm obviously biased. Everybody has their own biases. I like the idea that the empires don't need the people from the empires don't need a reason to be terrible. They can just be terrible on their own accord, right?
Yeah, I love the fact that like with everything still going on, and they just lost all these systems and stuff, they still just cannot resist their same petty bullshit that they've been dealing with.
Was still going on during the invasions.
The ScarCon was literally going on until it was snatched from them, and then they're like,
It's like
I
it's
guess we don't
still
fight
going
over it
on.
anymore. Yeah,
No, it's still going on. They're like bioadapted. The angel war clones have tentacles. It's fine. They can hold more guns with the tentacles.
it's fine. So, so talk me off the cliff. Why are these not secretly the war clones that the other has infected? That he has basically been infiltrating these different dust organizations over the years, and this is his strike to cause confusion before he makes his final, gambit against the world of humanity, thus ushering in a new shooter and the age of our conflict against the drifters. Why is that not what's happening?
It could be that, but like the only real reason that I would have is that I don't want it to be that.
That's fair.
Right? Like anything we say as to like why is speculation at
That's
this
fair.
point, and my biases and your biases are biases, but they're not. Neither one is more wrong than the other, right?
That's fair. But that being said, I do want to highlight Avio Yakin, who is a is
Avio's
a
great. He's a
he's
Gristis role player.
yeah, no, this dude is so good, man. I don't know if you know this, but he his
Navinal.
his greed yeah his Garissus role playing was so good during Valkyrie that the guy who voice acted the quartermaster did a special voice clip where he's calling out Fendon Steel as being like this awesome supporter and everything. It's really cool. Either way,
All right. Avio Yakin is so cool. He's a Gristis supporter who's just one day like, I'm gonna move to Venal and make a market. And like you ever see like one of those memes where it's like nobody and it's like blank and then like Avio Yakin, I'm gonna move to Venal and make a market. He moves to Venal. He just goes with a bunch of BPOs and a venture. And he just starts making stuff in Venal and selling it. Right? He eventually joins Boss, gets them to change their Fortizar to a Freeport market in commemoration of the Guristas. Right? He like turns this random unrelated alliance into an RP alliance just by the sheer force of being awesome. And he made a market in the middle of like nowhere in Venal, and it you can buy a ship. I lost a ship in Venal. I reshipped at his damn market.
this dude, like seriously, every single time I've talked to him, he's like, "Hey, so I've done some stuff with Garissus. You should check it out. Like, here you go." And he links it to me, and it's like multiple novels. Like, he probably knows more about the Garissus canon than CCP does at this point. But he breaks down. I've been talking for now years. I've been talking about mind control and soft drinks and how secretly the Lydai is trying to coordinate with the oh my god and blah, and I look like a lunatic out in the fringes. So instead of saying it all myself, I'm just going to show you what he has to say about it today. But so basically, it boils down to this idea that there's these subcranial nanocontrollers that were made by Lydai Corporation, which is part of PKN. PKN being the Black Forest group of the Caldari state that are the collection that came together to take the Gita 44 revamp contract, and are also the people who made the Hypernet. So these guys are relatively new allegiance of Caldari mega corporations that have now come to a lot of power, or at least a lot of lucrative contracts. Well, at about the same time, the Lydai came out with subcranial nanocontrollers, which are basically a cheaper version of the Ishikone's transneural microcontrollers. The transneural microcontrollers are like this special thing that goes into your brain that allows you to control drones with your brain. Subcranial microcontrollers,
Right.
however, what?
TCMCs and SCMCs. One goes uh, on on the cranium, and one goes under the cranium, and they're
Correct.
both for not mind control, but they were originally made for like therapy and stuff, and then they were used for like slavery purposes to
Right.
change the thoughts of people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so the Ishikone version has been used by Gallente for things like drone control and stuff, controlling drones and stuff like that, because it's basically an interface to your brain, right? So, but that
And
goes
medical reasons,
both
like
ways,
depression.
right? Yeah. So, but these new nano controllers are this cheaper version, and at first, Conid was going to be purchasing them in order to use them as slave stuff, or slave controller devices, but that ultimately fell through, especially when there was like this was during the death glow attacks and all that kind of stuff. However, they ended up getting funding, and so they moved forward with these nano controllers, even though it was no longer going to be sold by their lucrative contract to the MR. And then next thing we kind of hear about it is that Quaife is accused of using soft drink responsive subcranial nanocontrollers to sway Gallente presidential elections, which is kind of weird. And then it's kind of quiet for a little bit, but then it leads into the fact that if you notice one of the ads that is shown in all of our, in all the stations or whatever, one of the ads is for LiDAI nanocontrollers. So this is clearly something that has gone to market after being tested and proven to be mind control devices that could be activated by Quaife.
You're cutting in and out, or
oh, I think that was to you. But and then of course Quaife being the only group within the Gallente that is recognized by the state, and so maybe has associations with the state, especially PKN, and as we mentioned, was the group that was the ones that negotiated the Gina Fa incident. So now you have these mass-produced, advertised on all the billboards, nanocontrollers being distributed to population. The Guristas got caught. Like they smuggled out a whole bunch of them, and while some of them got found, like a stockpile got found, not all of them did. And then there's this bunch of embezzlement by the Guristas, and then they released the financial statements that showed that they actually bribed the leaders of PKN. So that whole situation stinks to high heaven and literally involved mind control devices. So that's another piece to the whole puzzle.
Yeah. So, like, the Eve universe just has so many crazy things like that, like subcranial and transcranial microcontrollers. Things that's like the development started for like medical reasons, if I'm correct, right? And people just take things and corrupt them, and that's kind of what happened. You see that a lot in real life too. Like how many things started for like medical reasons, and then we can make this a weapon, right? Or vice versa. Actually, both ways it happens.
Yeah. But so okay. Long story short, something's happening, and it's clearly going to keep happening, and it is happening in game. So, first of all, you mentioned earlier, so these new diamond rats that are showing up on all the gates, they are responsive to standings?
Yeah, just like normal diamond rats, they're responsive to standings. If you have negative standing with EMR, and you like negative, I think it's not 5 like the faction place will attack you. I think it's like negative 2 point something. And you jump into them, they're gonna kill you. Right?
Can you have positive? Can they be blue if you have just like the other
yes,
diamonds?
and they will rep you. They will actually rep you if you're like +5.
So
right?
so is faction warfare people the ones being able to engage with this or something? Like, is that what is causing you to
No,
have
anybody
with
with standings to the, like if you have Amar Empire standings from doing missions, you will have good standings with the Amar rats and bad standings with the Minmatar rats, right?
Oh, okay. So like I have 5.0
yeah.
of the Gallente Federation. So if I went right now, to one of these gates, they
The
would be
Gallente rat.
blue.
Gallente rats. There's no Gallente rats on the gates, but
Minmatar. I'm
if
5.0
you,
with Minmatar.
yeah, then Minmatar rats would be blue to you, and they would rep you. That's how Suetonia used to kill people with the old ESSs, and he had a +5 Blood Raider standings, and get the response fleets from the fobs and stuff in Null and plant an ESS. People would warp to it, and there'd be a big response fleet there, and he would get repped, and the response fleet would kill people because they didn't have Blood Raider standings.
All right. So, and then one other thing that I was thinking about is that people keep talking about whether or not this will dissolve Concord, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that this is not going to end Concord, but what it might do is disrupt EdenCom, and
So
which is the New Eden Common Defense Initiative. And one of the things I noticed is that
yeah,
all of the stuff on Sissy are all listed as Aegis, which is the Concord group that actually leads EdenCom. So it's Aegis's equipment, not EdenCom's, and EdenCom is kind of coming into question with these, or Concord is losing its ability to marshal its own navy through the combined forces, with all of the navies now being marshaled against each other.
I do think on a logical level that Concord's not going to go away. It's just too built into the game as an organization, but it's definitely going to put stress on Concord. And what ends, we're not sure. Maybe it's going to get rid of or change the focus of EdenCom some way, or deprioritize EdenCom. That's a possibility. A new Militia War Powers Act is a possibility, which would be faction warfare changes. The Militia War Powers Act is faction warfare.
I want to jump in on
there's
that
going to be
point.
some. Go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, about a year ago, we actually were pretty much at this point before. There was a big buildup of military between the Amar and a Minmatar that included in-game stuff.
Yeah, this is not the first time we've seen these diamond rats on gates.
Right.
The first time I think I saw these diamond rats on gates was in the war zone during the Becca, when the Blood Raiders bombed all the planets. The Minmatar and the Amar had rats on their original gates, right? And they camped the gates for a few days. And then something happened to de-escalate the tensions in Concord, and the rats got off the gates. Rats came back to the war zone during Flosiswin. The Brutor Vanguard and Serum and Arda Shapur rats were infamous, like in Flosiswin, for bashing structures, and
I remember that.
Some structures died of Usher Khans because of these Serum rats. The rats came back for the timers, right? So
there's the nano controller commercial, by the way, in case you were wondering which one I'm talking about.
So the first time I saw diamond rats hit a structure was when the Blood Raiders, not a fob. Fob rats have hit structures since they were implemented, but Blood Raiders dropped all the Dreadnoughts in Tanoo on the Lumen Fortizar.
Yes, right. And they've also been used to attack like Arataka Research Consortium's structures.
That was the Sancha. Yes, the same day as the Tanoo Blood Raider attacks. A couple hours later, Arataka Research Consortium, PNS Phoenix Naval Systems, and IRID had structures in Samiki, and those were hit by Sancha.
Right, which that leads back to my fact that the Sancha's always been like, hey, by the way, we're here and you don't know why. But either way, okay, so, but like I said, there was a major military buildup that led to an emergency intercouncil meeting, which led to a revision of the Emergency War Powers Act, the Emergency Militias War Power Act, which was a set of faction warfare changes that happened last year. And then there was discussion about a follow-up meeting by Concord to discuss the Emergency Militias War Power Act in regards to orbital bodies.
Yeah.
But then that thread kind of was just put on ice and wasn't touched again until now. Do you think
Yeah.
it's possible that like maybe they started getting ready to like pull the trigger a year ago and then it wasn't quite time yet, and so they pulled back, and now they're calling on the same beat? Or do you think this is actually like beat the last beat was necessary and this is just the next beat?
I think this is just the next beat because CCP has a habit of like having these storylines that go on for a long, long, long time. Like obviously, this whole thing started out in 2015 when Chicade first popped up, technically, right? And this all comes out of that. Of like if you follow all the threads back, I think this is just on time. So much, not so much that they pulled back.
So then what
But I
happened
do
last year
think
then? What it just kind of went away without a trace. Was there a point to that? Or was it a false
so. I
start?
think the reason why it went away without a trace was because of Flosis win, because that wasn't a CCP plan. That was the players did that treaty. I did the shit post, and CCP is like, "This is pretty cool. I'm gonna sit back and watch." Right,
That's
and
fair.
they just kind of poked up Flosis win for like a year. I think Flosis win might be what changed made the development of this slow down because it's more or less over
Well,
now.
the way
There's still
I mean, like, it really does feel like a lot of this at this point seems like it might be part of the backstory building up for the new shooter. And so if they didn't know when it was
yeah
going to be ready to be announced, just like they started to ramp up the story, they introduced Case Green Magic and all that kind of stuff right as they were getting
yeah
ready to bring out Nova, and then Nova wasn't coming out, and they're like, "Oh crap!" And they like pulled back, and they like wove it all into the Triglavian invasions and stuff, and made that work. And it's like
yeah
you can really tell that they're piling on the 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 kindling and stuff ready for the event, but they may not know exactly like that event is based on other timelines, developmental timelines, game develop,
yeah
not just in Eve, but even other, like this other development too. So the storytellers have learned from things like the Drifter invasion to make sure that their story beats are such that if they take a long time, it can make sense, and if it doesn't take a long time, then they can make it go fast if they need to. But developmental
so
delays are just a fact of life.
yeah it's definitely possible. Like my question is, does Nova interact with faction warfare like Dust did? Because in Dust we actually had special ammo that would be for planetary bombardments, and we'd have players playing Dust in our alliances,
Right.
and they'd be like, I need you to go to Arzad and bomb this district
I remember
on
that.
this planet, right? And you actually had to go to the planet and you had to lock a district and you had to shoot. And the more guns your ship had, the better. So everybody used destroyers. Like the Courser was amazing because it had the 8 turrets. Um, and then Dust died, and that just went away, and all the special orbital S ammo vanished. And uh, we have the new shooter that might be popping up. Is it going to be integrated with faction warfare? Because that's what this would imply. That like, oh, changes to the Emergency War Powers Act implies that this is have something to do with faction warfare.
I am going to continue to believe that the game will remain in the same IP and maybe thematically similar or be dealing with the same events, but will not necessarily be directly connected to EVE Online until CCP suggests that directly. I think that like that was a really cool thing that Dust did, and it was mind blowing. And I think that it's something that would be absolutely great to work towards. But to have that be the requirement, like a minimum requirement
Yeah,
for any such development, I feel is very restricting. And so, if they want
yeah,
to just make an MMO that takes place in the Eve universe but is on planets, and maybe even just the same beats, the same plot beats are going on like in the on the Foot Soldier MMO, you can actually see what's happening on the planet. On the Eve MMO, you can see what's happening in space. You don't necessarily need to connect those things, and then over time they can maybe figure out how to link those two more rather than
it'd be
making
kind
it
of
be
cool
a gimmick.
where they're like, where like if you flipped Flow System or whatever system, they could be like, oh, there's now this kind of fighting on Flow System 4 or whatever. Right. Yeah.
That being said, that level of conservative position is getting increasingly difficult to have when CCP is literally shooting planets with dreads. Like, hey guys, you remember Dust? We're going to remind you with all of those Dust Corps and the Dust Corps that specifically led to Dust, and then the other corps that were important from Dust. And then we're going to bring our ships and we're going to shoot at planets just like you did in Dust. I bet it doesn't have anything to do with Dust.
So the funny part about this is that they were actually shooting at the planet too. Yeah.
Exactly the same way that you would have with your coercer back in 2010 or whatever. No, like
I took one shot at a planetary district and I missed everything.
Oh
so,
no, I was in faction warfare at the time, so we got a lot of LP that way.
No, I was too, but I didn't do that much. I tried it like once and I like missed it, and I wish I had done it more. Because I was back still in Pi back then, right? And we had soldiers, Dust people in the Alliance, and I didn't interact with it as much as maybe I had hoped, but like I knew the mechanic.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we know that CCP wants that. We all want this kind of integrated universe, sort of like the Eve. What was that One War trailer or whatever it was? The one that shows the turn. No, it was the Prophecy trailer because it shows the turning on of the Stargate, but it shows like Valkyrie guys fighting with Eve guys and putting in Nova dudes to like board different structures and stuff. Like, I think that's everybody's dream, but the thing is that like it's important for every step to be sound on their own. And that's one of the things that we learned from Dust, and we learned from things like Valkyrie and stuff like that. So
what I remember from the Nova beta that they had a couple of Vegases ago was we fought Sancha, and then after we beat the Sancha, we had to extract. And after we won, I was going to the exit and I jumped off a cliff because I thought I could make the gap, and I couldn't make the gap. And I was really salty about dying after we won.
That's awesome.
That is all. That it's not an important or relevant point, but that's just what was in my head.
So yeah. So I guess to wrap this all up, what it seems to be happening is that this is a world event that is leading up to likely the next quadrant and possibly bigger. It does seem to be tied into the shooter that we know is under development, or at least other work within their IP, or at least the development of the expansion of their universe or other works within their IP. I believe that we'll probably be hearing more about this very soon, but in the meantime, there's likely going to be a lot more stuff in game going on, and I strongly recommend both following my Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, but also CCP's Twitch at this point, because that's the way that you get the news now, is that literally the Amar Certified News Network goes live on CCP's Twitch, and that's how you know something's happening.
Those that want a place that the news is automatically scraped and posted, there is the Roleplayers primary Discord.
That's true. Which, if you can drop that link.
Like that because I own it.
Yeah, I think you should be able to drop the link. And if you give me, I'll make sure to add that in the YouTube. But yeah, I think that about wraps things up. Is that true? Can we think of anything else? I think that's about it. So this has been the Eve Universe Show. By the way, today Arsia and I were supposed to do the CSM interview today. Or whatever.
Because I am running for CSM.
Because Arsia is running for CSM, and so if you like what she has said today, and whatnot, consider throwing her at the top of your ballot, because now more than ever, we need people who can speak intelligently about this stuff to be
So,
talking to CCP.
so the thing about this is that this kind of stuff is one of my campaign platforms, basically for CSM, because one of my platforms is lore visibility and lore used as a content generator. And this is, I could not have timed my application better because this is this is like free advertising. This is what I am about. All this weird stuff is happening, and we're building ships to get ready to fight the Amara RPers, right?
It is great for your campaign, but bad for my campaign coverage, because as I said at the
Yeah.
beginning of the stream, I at this point I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to continue. Like, if this is the pace in which things are going to continue to go for now, I should probably focus on this and leave someone else to do CSM interviews. But we'll have to see how things work out. Like everybody else at this point, my plans have been thrown out the window, and I'm kind of playing things by ear. But your campaign is still going and is still strong, and we will have you on here anytime there is stuff going on. Also, that actually is a good point. I've also been talking to the leader of Alexis Matari, Elizabeth.
Deebs. Elsabeth is the
Elis-
CEO of my corporation.
Oh,
The
there you go.
EM leader is Deebs Spar.
Okay, so Elizabeth and I have been talking a lot too, and she's doing a great job correcting me on all the ways that I'm wrong all the time, and I really, really appreciate it. And
Elsabeth is the queen of Minmatar RP.
it is spooky, and I don't know what just happened. Oh God, I'll deal with that after the show, Joachim. All right, so um, yeah, so she's fantastic, and I hope to have her on the show soon. And we will continue to cover the ongoing events and bring it to you and put it on my Twitter as soon as I have any information whatsoever. On a more personal note, this has been the first week of Eve Universe, and I've come out with like 3 videos now on YouTube, and I've gotten almost 100 followers and a whole bunch of support, and people have been actually coming to my Patreon and coming back again, and it's really special, and I appreciate it. And Joachim just gave a whole bunch of subs, and other people have subbed too today, and it's just another sign that every time I put my trust in the community, you guys come through for me, and I really do appreciate it. And so, in honor of all of that, in honor of our first week, in honor of John Bellicose Day, I love you guys, and I'm so happy that I'm able to make this content with you. And I'm so happy that CCP makes it with us. And once again, thank you so much, Arsia, for coming and throwing away your CSM interview to talk more about the lore.
Tomorrow I'll do my own stream with
There you go.
PvP and Harbingers.
Absolutely, yeah. Make sure to post one more time, like X up in chat, and make sure, if you haven't already, to follow Baleful Dysnomia on Twitch, and that's Arsia for those who didn't catch that.
Yeah, I am Baleful Dysnomia.
Did I say that right this time?
Yeah, you said
okay,
it.
Good. Because for a long time I didn't say it anywhere close to correct, and one day Fansui is like, I didn't expect you to get both names wrong. Like, it's because I just said it. He only knew your name because I had said it. So he came back later. He's like, by the way, it's totally wrong. I was like, oh, okay. I should probably say it right. Anyway, great streamer, great content, and a lot to say about these particular topics. So, and thank you to Razor Girl for showing up too. But at risk of making this too long, so that way it gets over to the YouTube show, side of things, so that way people can watch it. If you can't see it live, we'll be heading out now. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in space.
every city